Hi, this is Clover with Watson Realty, and I'm back with John Weaver from Cornerstone Building Analysis. And in our first video, we talked about some of the many factors that you deal with, or that I deal with, that the buyers or sellers are going to be dealing with selling their properties, and why it's important to have a home inspector do that inspection. But we really want to dive into what do these things mean. When I provide a mold inspection addendum, what are you looking for when you're doing an inspection about mold?
Well, a mold inspection is basically coming down to an air quality test. That's an important thing to consider, especially with an REO property. Has the house been sitting vacant? Have the utilities been off for an extended period of time? The banks generally aren't going to give you much of a seller's disclosure, if any at all, so you don't know if there's any leaks, any issues, whatnot, if there's been some kind of sabotage involved in the house, people leave and they're upset, that kind of thing, or what's happened since they've left. So air quality becomes important in Florida with the heat. You know, if you have a roofing leak, if you have a plumbing leak, if you had some kind of water intrusion event, just humidity in the Florida summers inside that home, and utilities sitting off for a long time, you could end up with some environmental situations that begin to develop. A mold inspection is a visual inspection. First of all, we're looking for the signs of moisture intrusion. And then secondly, depending on the scope, the depth of the inspection that you want done, we can run air samples, we can take swabs if there's visible mold. The air samples basically will collect whatever spores are floating about in a given amount of square footage in a given room.
Well, I can tell you when I walk into a property, I can smell
musty odor.
Yeah. And then sometimes you don't see anything.
That's right.
So what do you do in those situations?
If you can't see anything, the air sample is the best way to go. We will try to, again, we're looking for the things that would cause mold, which is moisture. Something's got to be leaking. There's got to be some kind of moisture in order to have mold. Yeah. And from that point on, based on the square footage, the floor plan, so on and so forth, determine how many air samples we need to run. And the air samples are pretty good about getting the spores that are behind drywall, you know, behind...
Let's talk about that. You know, one of the things is that you've showed me in some of my inspections on my previous buyers is there's moisture behind the wall. How do you find moisture behind the wall? What do you do?
Well, we've got some bells and whistles, some gizmos and that kind of thing. We carry a moisture meter. There's thermal imaging, infrared cameras and whatnot, signs of moisture stains and so on and so forth, symptoms that you'll see in paint, symptoms that you see on the exterior of the house. I mean, it's really kind of a potpourri, I mean, a mixture of different things that we're looking at, and that's why you're hiring a trained eye, a home inspector, to look at all the possible causes, sources, and so on and so forth, and then make a professional opinion based on experience and our training as to what you need to really find the full effect of those situations in a given piece of property.
And you know, one of the things that I run into is that when John has indicated some type of moisture, immediately people freak out and they think that the whole house is damaged, they're going to get Legionnaire's disease. And I can tell you that the severity of the moisture can easily be remediated, can it not?
Most of the time, and that's case by case, you know, case by case. But you know, it's Florida. There's moisture, so the extent of it and what's happened as a result of it, those factors all come into play. So that's where we really need to communicate as to what your specific situation is, and that's why it behooves you to have a trained eye take a look at the piece of property that you're considering to make sure there's no catastrophic situation.
So when I go to someone's shower and I see a little bit of mold on the caulking line, or there's some on the window seal, what does the law state that is? What do you classify that?
You know, there's a lot of surface mildew that's just a cleaning hygiene issue, especially in bathrooms. So it's mildew compared to mold. Is there a difference? And you know, not really. I mean, you could kind of get into that and pick that apart. Is it necessary to swab and find out the species of every single bacterial growth that you see? Not necessarily. And that's again where you're paying for a trained professional to take a look at that and assess that room, that situation, as to whether or not this is something that really needs to be tested or delved into deeper. A moisture meter would be helpful in that situation. See what's going on behind that tile. Is that just on the surface because the people didn't clean their shower, or is it because water's getting inside the wall and we've got, you know, a serious situation there? And we can determine that when we're in that particular bathroom, and then make the call as to, or present that information to you, more importantly, and you make the call as to whether or not you want that tested, and let the lab do what the lab does.
Fantastic. And I know that this is a very touchy subject for a lot of people in regards to mold. It is a very dangerous thing, there's no doubt. Most of the time, when I'm doing property with that are short sales, the power's not on.
Right.
And so the houses have been vacated for many, many months. Nobody's taking care of them. Oftentimes, especially during the hot summer, oftentimes I'll walk into them and there is problems. So this is definitely a big issue, guys, that you want to make sure you have a professional home inspector look at this, give you a honest evaluation as to what's necessary. And then the next step that I take, John, obviously after your inspection, is I provide several contractors to bid for the remediation based on your suggestion.
Right.
And then that way the consumer, the buyer, the client figures out really how much remediation is necessary contractually for me to get negotiated, or if they're buying the house as is, what their responsibility is to having a clean property once they've owned it. All right, well, we've run out of time, so we've got to take our next video segment here. We're going to be talking with John again on another exciting addendum here regarding Chinese drywall. This is another addendum that a lot of people have. It's been very popular in the news, and it creates a lot of questions, especially from people that aren't familiar with the term, and it creates a lot of fear for people. So we're going to be talking about that. Thank you very much for making us part of your day, and you've made a great choice with cliffclover.com. If you'd like more information and talk to John directly, his link is provided below. And if you'd like to talk to me about any of the properties that you may see on cliffclover.com or like to call me direct, it's 321-229-5890. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.